YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
Welcome back. In tonight's Spotlight, the Trump administration says it could soon require visitors to submit 5 years of social media history. And if they find something that they don't like, well, you could be barred from entering the U.S. Right now, citizens from countries in the visa waiver program, including the UK, Germany, and Australia, have to register online and pay $40 before they're approved to travel to the U.S. for up to 90 days. But according to the federal registrar, the new rule would not only require applicants to share their social media accounts, but also undergo a more detailed examination of their history, including the names of family members, where they lived, and submit a selfie in their application. So for more on all this, I want to bring in Rosanna Berardi to break all this down. She's a managing partner at the Berardi Immigration Law Firm. And Rosanna, first, thank you so much for your time. But listen, I suppose, first off, I mean, do you see any merit to potential legal challenges of these new reviews?
Well, Alex, thanks for having me. There may be some legal challenges. However, it's a dicey issue. It seems like there are major First Amendment and privacy concerns here, but the U.S. Constitution and the Supreme Court have clearly held that foreign nationals entering the U.S. don't have the same right to privacy that U.S. citizens do. So this is in the Federal Register. I would not be surprised if it went into effect in the new year.
Well, I'm curious, is the concept of scrutinizing socials completely new? I mean, certainly, you think about like the hiring process for many jobs, and they might look at, what you post on Instagram or what you've tweeted recently. But from federal institutions, is that new?
Well, it's not brand new. For visa applicants, people needing to go to the U.S. consulate and embassy worldwide, the government's been requiring social media history for several years. But the point of the visa waiver program through ESTA is to reward people from countries that have a great track record of, non-criminals and not entering the U.S. unlawfully. This flies in the face of the whole intent of this ESTA program because it's treating every ESTA applicant like a visa applicant and asking for a ton of information.
One of the other things, and I recognize that I'm probably asking you to look into a crystal ball here, but what do you think CBP would be looking for? What would determine what's acceptable and what's not?
So I think they're looking for individuals that may be involved in government propaganda or anti-U.S. sentiment. The concern that I have is who's going to decide what's offensive, what's inappropriate. Is it going to be an algorithm? Is it going to be a human? Going back to Facebook 5 years, I mean, you think of what a kid 20 years old is posting versus a kid that's 25 could be very different. I don't know what I posted 5 years ago, let alone 5 weeks ago. So I'm just concerned with the breadth of this and also asking people for 10 years of their email addresses. That would be a tough one for me as well.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I covered this a few months ago about how the Trump administration was going to require 5 years of social media history in order to obtain a temporary visa and be able to enter the United States of America. I mean, it doesn't sound much more ridiculous than that, but of course we know why they are doing this, and this is just more proof, of course, that social media websites like Facebook, which we all know are creations of the Pentagon and DARPA. We know why they exist because these are websites where people willingly tell the government, tell people around them, tell their family members what's on their mind. This was the first phase in uploading your consciousness because, of course, anytime a world event happens, people would go on Facebook and they would tell everybody what happened, whether a family member died and they wanted to put out a public statement for their friends. Of course, we see how people behave now with social media. Anytime an event happens, everybody feels the need to post their thoughts or their opinions on it as if there's some type of a celebrity. This is part of the mass conditioning that has occurred with social media. But Facebook itself and all these social media accounts were created by the government. Again, the Pentagon LifeLog project was killed off on February 4th, 2024. And of course, on the same exact day, Facebook was launched. And like I've said a million times, people would not have willingly participated or signed up for websites like Facebook had they known that these were government websites. They thought that this was just the creation from a college kid. It was a fun idea. You can interact with other classmates. Then it turned into from being a college type website to being a national website where anybody could sign up and find their family members and connect with friends. And of course, this was all ploy to get people to share things online so the government could build a profile on you. And now we've gotten to a point where, of course, the U.S. is mandating these checks of people's social media histories and, of course, 10 years worth of email accounts that you have had and created. And if you forget one of your accounts, you will not be admitted into the United States because, of course, we all know using IP addresses and other things, the government can easily find it. They can get through VPNs. They know what you've created, where you've created it, and they'll see the activity that you've used with certain email addresses, like signing up for websites like maybe ones like a callforuprising.com, because that's what this is really all about. So you heard the woman there say, well, who are the people who are going to be doing the checks? Who's going to be sitting there going through all of these people's profiles? Well, of course, we know that they're going to be using an algorithm. They're going to use artificial intelligence to go through to find keywords and things that have been posted or shared within seconds to deny people's visa access into getting into the United States of America. And I decided that since this is the topic that we're talking about, and I have kind of mentioned it in the past, how social media will be building out your profile, your digital profile on you, I decided to use AI and ask it questions about how this entire process is going to work. Who's going to be disqualified from entering the United States based on their social media content. And I even asked it questions about certain topics like 5G or being anti-vaccine, what that means in regards to getting a U.S. visa, and you will not believe the answers that it gave to me. So let's start here. U.S. authorities, including the Department of State and Customs and Border Protection, use social media disclosures to conduct security vetting under the Immigration and Nationality Act. The goal is to identify applicants who are inadmissible due to national security threats, public safety risks, or violations of U.S. laws. This screening expanded in 2025 via Executive Order 14161, focuses on derogatory information for the past 5 years, often starting with algorithmic flags followed by human review. Not every post is scrutinized deeply. Most applicants pass without issue if there's no red flags. Well, of course, people hear this type of stuff and they'll say, well, I don't have anything to worry about. I just posted, grandma's broccoli casserole recipe, and I shared photos of my kids without realizing that I'm sharing these photos with the government. I didn't do anything bad, but they don't realize that this is about the thought police. This isn't about going online and trying to find Al-Qaeda interacting with people on Facebook, okay? Because, of course, we all know Al-Qaeda and ISIS, all these terrorist organizations are really funded by the CIA and are a branch or a tentacle of the CIA. They don't really actually exist. They like to use those stories so that people hear, well, they arrested this kid. He was online networking with ISIS, so the police showed up at his house. And everyone goes, that's great that the government stepped in, that the FBI stepped in. Because they want you to think that that's who they're really targeting. But they're not targeting them. They're targeting people who think like we do, who understand what the government is actually doing. So these are the things that they'll give you. Terrorism or extremism. These are people who are going to get flagged when trying to enter the U.S., okay? Terrorism or extremism, posts supporting, aiding, or promoting designated foreign terrorist organizations like ISIS and Hamas, extremist rhetoric, sharing propaganda, anti-American or anti-Semitic views. You got to love how that lines up with one another. Not anti-Christian, just anti-Semitic, always is, right? Endorsing, promoting, or espousing hostility toward the U.S. government, its policies, or American values, anti-Semitic harassment, violence, or conspiracy theories. So these are the things that are on the list, okay? So conspiracy theories about the Jewish people. That means talking about the synagogue of Satan. That means talking about things like the blood libel. They will deny you a visa. If you've ever posted or shared a video from somebody like me or someone else that you listen to on your Facebook account that might have asked questions about the origins of vampires, so to speak. Well, guess what? That'll be considered anti-Semitic and you'll be denied entry into America. Then they say criminal activity, admissions of boasts of crimes. As if, well, people are pretty dumb these days, so I guess people are online boasting about getting arrested, association with gangs or criminal networks, evidence of unlawful acts. See, things like that sound somewhat normal. Of course, we know they've trained everybody about anti-Semitism to think that, well, if you say anything about a certain group of people, you should be arrested, you should be thrown in jail, which of course they do in other countries already, and we know with the Noahide laws how that's all going to work out for the rest of us. Then they have health or moral issues, content showing communicable diseases, or prostitution and sex trafficking involvement. So the common sheeple hears all that stuff, and they're like, that seems, within reason, right? We don't want that here in America, right? And then you go into start deep diving. You start asking the AI robot about certain views and how that's going to work with entering the United States and getting a visa. Well, how about anti-vaccine views? It says, what triggers scrutiny? Posts calling vaccines government bioweapons, urging mass non-compliance, or linking them to conspiracies, depopulation plots that imply hostility to U.S. public health policies, mild skepticism, quote, I'm concerned about side effects, is low risk, but extremism, especially if tied to violence or groups like anti-vax militias, raise alarm. Where are there anti-vax militias? Where's there any militia in the United States of America? I mean, if they tell you that there is a militia somewhere, it's their militia that they've made up, because there's no militias in America. They wouldn't allow you to even get close enough to form a militia because they're monitoring, tracking all of us. So if anybody was like, hey, how about 50 of us get together armed? We start a militia, right? And we'll pretend like we're going to be the new Waco. Well, you'd be killed and shot immediately, and they put propaganda out there saying why they did it. And everybody would agree, because they'd say, well, these people were going to overthrow the White House. These people were going to go to a gay pride parade. These people, and everyone would go, yep, good thing we got rid of them, right? So has anyone heard of an anti-vax militia? Let me give you a break. The Trump administration's crackdown on misinformation, ironically while targeting fact checkers, heightens focus on this as false vaccine claims were central to 2020 through 2025 censorship debate. So medium risk could lead to administrative processing, delay of 1 to 3 months, or interview questions, no widespread 2025 denials reported solely for anti-vax posts. High risk, if escalating, suggests intent to evade U.S. health mandates during entry. So if you try to not get vaccinated, say if you try to get a fake vaccine card, which they like to tell you is illegal, which of course is not. What's illegal is them telling you that you have to take a vaccine that they just created in a laboratory, which of course we know is filled with nanotechnology. I mean, that's what's really illegal. And then look, if you go into other topics like 5G, for example, right? But people like us talk about 5G, people's heads spin. They don't even grasp what we're talking about, right? They look at a tower and they think that it's making their phone go faster, even though there's been no proof since those things have gone up that anyone's downloading music faster. They just can't think or process any of this stuff, right? So claims that 5G causes cancer, COVID, or enables government surveillance control, e.g. burn 5G towers to stop the deep state, especially if bundled with other conspiracies. This echoes COVID-era theories linking 5G to pandemics, which persist in fringe groups. Standalone tech concerns are fine, but calls to action or ties to extremism flag as radical ideologies. Low to medium risk rarely disqualifies alone, as 5G skepticism is common. 20 to 30% of Americans express doubts, but in 2025, it's lumped under anti-American views if implying opposition to U.S. tech infrastructure. So let's just get that straight. If you're protesting, if you see a 5G tower near your kid's school, your kid's institution, let's just call it that because that's what the schools are, or any school that you drive by, any institution. You see a tower, you say, that's really bad. These poor kids are going to be getting frequencies all day. I mean, I don't know what's worse, getting the propaganda fed you in the school institution or getting the radiation exposure. But either way, it is considered anti-American if you're in opposition of U.S. tech infrastructure. Can't make it up. I mean, that's admittance right there to the fact that big tech is really just an illusion. These are umbrella companies that pretend to be Apple, pretend to be Facebook, all these companies, which are really just under the guise of DARPA, as that's who creates all this tech. So low to medium risk, okay, anti-American views, which imply opposition to U.S. tech. High risk, if escalated, if posts advocate sabotage, protests turning violent, it could be seen as a security threat leading to denial. And then you look here at the comparison of risks. So mild anti-vax, likelihood of flagging you is low, right? And that, aligns with just having small doubts about the vaccine, saying, I don't know, should I get it? That's what that post would be. Extreme anti-vax would be if you posted anything about it being a bioweapon. That's looked at as medium to high. Okay, it'll delay or give a denial for students' visas, possible health ground, invocation, mild anti-5G, which is health concerns, questioning, saying, I don't know, are 5G towers healthy? Does anyone have any proof or evidence? That would be considered low. But extreme 5G, like saying, get these things out of here, would be considered medium, right? So from there, I decided to look into other conspiracies, right? Because I don't have social media, but I have YouTube, and I mean, they count that, right? But obviously I'm anonymous, but most of you share a lot of my content, or have over the years. So those would be things, even if it was 5 years ago, if you shared some of my videos, say on Pizzagate, right? Well, that's going to be up there. Let's see what they say about Pizzagate. Pizzagate is treated much more seriously than anti-vax or anti-5G content by U.S. vetting officers. It is explicitly classified by DHS, FBI, and the State Department as a dangerous anti-Semitic-driven conspiracy that has already inspired real-world violence. Most notably, the December 2016 Comet Ping Pong shooting. Of course, that was a government act. The guy went in there, he shot the computer, he got arrested. When he was let out of prison, he was shot by the police, if anyone out there didn't hear. So he's not even alive to tell his lie. How convenient is that? He serves his time supposedly in jail, and then he gets out of jail, and he gets into run-in with the police. He gets pulled over, and the police shoot him. And that's the end of the story. So that guy doesn't exist anymore. I think his name is George Glass or John Doe, something along those lines. But let's just look at that real quick. DHS, FBI, and the State Department declare it dangerous and anti-Semitic. Does anybody remember during that talking anti-Semitism? Why? Because we're talking about James Alefantis and what we probably can perceive his religion is, right? I love how they just lump in anti-Semitism with anything that has to do with things like this, right? Oh, it's anti-Semitic. Oh, is it? Can you tell us why you're claiming that? Well, you were talking about people that, claiming to be Jewish. Oh, so it's anti-Semitic because they're doing really creepy things like posting pictures of children naked with dollar bills in one hand and a pizza slice over their crotch. Yeah, it makes us anti-Semitic, right? So it goes on to say, strongly endorsing it as fact. Quote, Pizzagate's 100% real. Elites traffic children in pizza restaurants. Typical risk level, very high. Sharing memes, videos, or articles that push the theory, even without explicit comment, high. Older posts, 2016 to 2020, that you liked, retweeted, or commented, this needs investigation. Medium, high. So even if you saw a video of mine in 2016, right, when, channels were booming and then we all got, of course, suspended and they replaced all of us with people like Jack Posobiec or whatever his name is, and some of these other clowns like Tim Pool all got, pushed into the spotlight. These are people who are making millions of dollars. Well, the rest of us got thrown off the internet and then, of course, never were monetized again. But those people came and replaced all of us. And they don't talk about any of these topics. How convenient, right? They go, oh, I've heard about the pizza thing. I don't know, maybe not. And that's it, right? But here they're saying if you posted anything, if you said this needs investigation. I mean, if you saw something like the tweets from Jamie, any of these guys, where they're holding pizza up over kids' crotches, and you said this needs investigation, this is creeping me out, you would be considered a risk and be denied a visa, right? So when we listen to the story in the beginning, when they're saying, oh, this is going to be a new thing, oh, terrorism, we're going to watch out for Al-Qaeda or ISIS or this nonsense. This is specifically AI telling you what they're looking for and what's a high risk. So any topic about Pizzagate is a high risk. Whether you're saying it's real, whether you're saying it needs investigation, high risk. Pretty incredible, right? This needs investigation. That's like saying a picture, your next door neighbor has an Instagram account and they just start posting all these weird pictures of young children, with really weird, next to their pictures, or put pizza slices over their crotch. Now, wouldn't you have every right to call the police and be like, hey, my neighbor's been acting weird, and this is what he's putting up online? Could somebody investigate? They'd be like, oh, yeah. And if you don't call the police on them, they'd be like, why did you not call us and tell us, right? Well, for James Alefantis, because he's got pictures of the White House, which really is the origins of how all that started. A lot of people talked about the WikiLeaks, which we know are controlled leaks, was the fact that this stuff was all over these guys' social media accounts. All over it. It was not like it was hidden. And then the celebrity connection with like Miley Virus doing the same type of stuff. So this is a threat to allow a visa, ladies and gentlemen. If you believe or you've said Pizzagate needs to be investigated. Pretty incredible, right? How about we look at adrenochrome, right? I don't even know if I can say the word, but why not at this point? Discussing it, particularly in the context of the conspiracy theory that elites harvested from tortured children for anti-aging or euphoric effects, poses an extremely high risk for U.S. entry compared to or exceeding Pizzagate. Then they go on to say the theory rooted in QAnon and Pizzagate narrative is widely recognized by DHS as baseless anti-Semitic trope, echoing historical blood libel myths, right? Well, why don't you look into the origins of where, these books were, the first vampire book, right? Who wrote it? And how these people openly talked about, the Bram Stokers of the world, openly discussed the origins going back to the blood libel. But you can't say that, of course, even though these people openly admitted that that was the reason and the inspiration behind it. And I have many videos on the website, acallforunuprising.com, for anyone out there that wants to see my old videos, which of course were removed, which you can't discuss. So back to adrenochrome. Okay, apparently, if these people call us nuts when you talk about harvesting blood, drinking blood. Oh, you're completely insane, they say. Then why is the government look at it as an extremely high risk level? If you believe this stuff, why can't people just go, oh, these people are a little out there, a little crazy, right? Yeah, that's what the government cares about. You think the anti-government stuff would be like, let's overthrow the government, let's start a militia. Well, even in the terms of what we read so far, terrorism and militias is a medium risk versus Pizzagate and adrenochrome. So look at this. Endorsing the harvesting theory is fact. Hollywood elites drink adrenochrome from kids. Wake up. Extremely high risk. Probably denied a visa immediately. Sharing QAnon-linked memes, videos, or threads promoting it even without comment, very high. And of course, they throw QAnon in there because that's another government creation. How they hijacked the movement. How they really started getting data on most civilians who were following QAnon, right? They give you little breadcrumbs and they lead you down ridiculous rabbit holes like some of the stuff we've heard with, JFK Jr., et cetera, being alive. I mean, some of the stuff's unbelievable, but these people think that the government's going to allow something like QAnon to exist. He can get around the government. They wouldn't arrest the guy, just like all the other crap with Epstein. Oh, they're just giving you little bits of information. You wouldn't know who he was if they didn't want you to know who he was. On to more here. Older likes retweets pre-2023 from adrenochrome promoting accounts. High risk. So if you retweeted something that someone wrote about celebrities drinking blood, you might not get a visa. A visa, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about getting denied entry into a country because you retweeted something. We're not talking about, you trying to get on a plane with a machete in your back pocket, dressed as Jason Voorhees. Okay, we're talking about retweeting something about drinking blood. Then it says debunking it or posting. I used to believe this, but it's nonsense. Well, that's low because that's the thought police. Oh, you said it was nonsense. So you get a bump up in your visa. You probably get pushed right to the front of the line. Neutral Scientific mentions adrenochrome as 1950s schizophrenia. So if you bash it and you say that adrenochrome and anyone talks about it is a schizophrenic, well, you'll be very low risk level and you'll probably be let in immediately without even any more checking being done. And here's a couple other things which are hilarious, right? The moon landing. Right? I was looking up, history. They taught us, of course, which is all fake history. The moon landing denial by itself is low to medium risk, but it's treated different than Pizzagate and adrenochrome, okay? So casual posts like, I don't think we ever went to the moon, or sharing moon hoax memes, low risk. Long threads, YouTube links, or repeatedly calling NASA liars, Apollo was filmed in a studio, low to medium risk. Tying it to violent or extremist narratives, like, quote, NASA faked it to hide the flat earth, reptilians, and should be overthrown. Medium to high risk. These are things you would think that people would laugh at you, right? Oh, you think the earth's flat, they laugh at you. Oh, if you think reptilians exist and the fallen ones, et cetera, they laugh at you. But you're a high risk for a visa. So the government's concerned about that, right? And this is what I've been talking about with red flag laws. These are all the same exact things that are going to be used for red flag laws. So they're getting conservatives on board with red flag laws because they're going to say, well, mental health of these trans people who are going to Christian schools and shooting them up. And then the conservatives go, yeah, we do need red flag laws for mental health. But really, when they put a Democrat in power, they'll say, well, the mental health isn't a trans person. Mental health are these conspiracy people. Oopsie daisy, you allowed the red flag laws. And now all of a sudden, people are talking about reptilians won't be allowed to arm themselves, right? Oh, yeah. It's a simply liking or occasionally retweeting moon hoax accounts is very low. But again, something like the moon landing, denying the moon landing, it's a low threat. Not no threat, a low threat. You would think it'd be a no threat. Why can't somebody deny it? We've never been back. The footage is a joke. Well, the government told you that it was real, so you better believe it. So you're a threat because you're questioning the government. And if you're calling NASA liars, well, now you're a medium threat. And if you're saying that they faked it to hide the flat earth or reptilians, you're a high risk. I mean, it's lunacy. Lunacy. And then last but not least, the digital ID. Is talking about the digital ID, you would say, well, can't you have an opinion on it? Well, look what it says. Posts about digital ID as a conspiracy, global surveillance scam, mark of the beast, or tied to the Great Reset carry medium to high risk, depending on intensity, higher than the moon landing, but lower than Pizzagate or adrenochrome. How it's viewed in practice. Digital ID skepticism is common in conspiracy circles, but U.S. screening treats it as potential radicalism if it suggests opposition to government tech for control. I mean, this is the thought police, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so extreme conspiracy. Digital ID is the mark of the beast for global control. Can't even believe that AI is saying that, but it is, because of course we know part of the reason they let channels like mine back is that they're studying people like me and you, and they're data mining all of us, which makes me hesitant to even want to do this anymore. But nonetheless, extreme conspiracy. Digital ID is the mark of the beast. High. So calling digital ID the mark of the beast, you're a high risk for entering the United States. I mean, do we have religious freedom? Apparently not. We learned that during COVID when you couldn't opt out of a vaccine based on your religious beliefs, even if you told them you thought it was the mark of the beast or whatnot, right? But if that's your belief, the digital ID is the mark of the beast, you're a high threat. Think about that stuff. Sharing memes, articles on Great Reset surveillance without strong endorsement, medium risk. Mile post, you're worried about digital ID privacy erosion, low risk. Debunking or neutral digital ID pros and cons, discussion, very low. So you can have a discussion, right? Say, well, it's okay. What about my privacy, right? But say the mark of the beast, you're high threat. I mean, this is red flag laws. And tying to violence and extremism, resist the digital ID tyranny by any means is very high. So if you're somebody out there that says, I'm not going to get the digital ID, I don't want any part of the digital ID, refuse the digital ID, you're a high threat to get a visa. I mean, you can't make this up. So just to recap, high threat if you call it the mark of the beast, digital ID. High threat if you say it's digital ID tyranny. If you believe Pizzagate was real, even if you reshared a post or retweeted it, high risk for denial of a visa, right? And you saw the AI, put it right at the top here. Because every time I put in one of these questions, it was comparing it to Pizzagate, being Pizzagate and adrenochrome, the highest risk for visa, getting a visa. When you tell the common person about this stuff, their head spins because they're just like, these people are nuts. They believe that they harvest blood and all this type of stuff, right? Well, the government doesn't seem to think so. They seem to think you're a risk and you're anti-government for believing that stuff, and they want to deny you entry into their country. And of course, this will be all countries. This will be you trying to go to the UK. This will be you trying to go to Australia, wherever. Right? And eventually it'll be you trying to cross a state border at one point, right? When they start having their red and blue states which will be based on ideologies. Oh, it's a liberal state. And you think about Pizzagate, you can't come into this state. We've done a background check on you and what you post on social media. That's what it's going to be, right? Different laws and rules in reds and blue states. You have to be vaccinated in blue states and red states. You won't have to be vaccinated. They'll divide people. They'll herd them the way they want. And then they'll deny you entry into other states. And you'll pretty much be a prisoner in your state. And that's what they're going to eventually do to all of us, right? All in the name of good old-fashioned, government tyranny, ladies and gentlemen. So Donald Trump, the hero that all these MAGA people love, who just continues to implement big tech into our lives with the Build Back, big, beautiful bill and all this other crap, which is all about global surveillance. Now they're telling you that they're going to tell you how to think, which, again, this goes back to Larry Fink and all these guys. It's about behavioral control. You have to think this. You have to act this way, or else we're going to force behaviors. We're going to force change, right? So people see this stuff. They're like, I'm not going to retweet a video about Pizzagate that this guy posted, even though I believe it, because I might be denied entry in the U.S. I might be thrown out of America at some point. Right. And that's how they control your thoughts and your behavior, by making you afraid to speak your mind or to question anything. Welcome to 1984 in the year 2025, going into 2026. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.